This is Memorial Day 2024, and we're going to be doing a walking tour of the Wurtemberg Cemetery here in Rhinebeck, New York. So please follow me. You can hit the pause button.
I can't.
Okay, well, keep going, man.
I'm glad he did it sooner than later because I have to go to a barbecue.
Well, this won't take long. We'll walk through here.
No, I don't mind. I thought it would be like a whole nother hour before
no.
you do this. No, I think this is great. Should I have my hat?
I got all day. I'm not doing anything. I'm mowing the lawn.
I am so glad I wore these shoes because I was going to wear like a little kitten heel. I haven't been a shoemaker in years because I couldn't find one, but I heard it was in Kingston. Because I lived in the city for years, it's one on every corner. I had like all these nice shoes, but you have to have those little lips.
Watch the caterpillars.
They're all, and you're going to wreck your heels, and I'm not doing that.
All right, we'll pause here for a moment.
All my shoes.
All right, now, this spot right here where we have our chicken barbecue every year, at one time, this was the home of Wurtemberg School number 8. It was a one-room schoolhouse. And you see it's kind of flat here. This is the outhouse for the school right here. And this school was put here in 1797, and it stayed as a school until 1938 when the consolidated school district started. So they pick people on a bus and bring them into town. And Mary Traver Boss, who lived down the street here at the Bittersweet, that was her family farm, right? She walked here every day and came to school here. And she liked the one-room schoolhouse because it's about 12 kids from all different age groups, and the older kids help the younger kids, so there's no homework. She liked that. And she said that we went up to the minister's house to pump the water, and we had a bucket with a ladle, and we all drank out of the same bucket, and no one ever got sick. That's her.
Imagine
Isn't that great? So this was removed in 1954, and they took it away, and it's the house that's sort of down here. They added on. You can't tell that, but the core of the house is our one-room schoolhouse. Someday, when Patrick hits the lottery and gets $1 million, he's gonna give the money to rebuild the schoolhouse right here, and we'll use it for like meetings and so on. I have it all planned out. So you better get busy. Okay, now let's walk back here.
So this is the schoolhouse right here? The side. Just the side. Okay, yeah. Because here. Well, no, not the.
You can see that if you look by that tree, there's a post in the ground. That's the fence that went around this property. So when you're on this side of that fence, here's a post hole right here. This side of the fence is the cemetery. That side is this is all the schoolyard. So come over this way. This is the grave of Henry M. Ackerd, who died in 1917, and he was a member of Company D of the 150th Regiment from Dutchess County. And again, they were organized in Dutchess County. So Company D is the Rhinebeck area. So these are all farm boys from Rhinebeck. This star is the insignia for the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic. That means you're a Civil War veteran. And so the American Legion puts flags on all the veterans' graves that we have identified. So in the corner, 150th New York Volunteer Regiment, and those are the ones that did Sherman's March to the Sea, right? So here they are. They're in Rhinebeck, minding their own business. Next thing you know, they're marching through Georgia, right? In wool uniforms. Okay, so let's go this way. This section of the cemetery from the outhouse back, this strip right here, was added around 1890. So the graves here tend to be a little bit newer. Okay, let's go this way. This section of the cemetery is not a cemetery, it's the churchyard. And so when this church originally met at the corner of Primrose Hill and the Albany Post Road, which is Highway 9. And it's called Peter Fraley's Burial Yard. And there are people buried in the woods there somewhere.
Sorry.
Because the church goes from 1760 to about 1800, they came here. So they took some of the tombstones from that cemetery and relocated them here. So the old stones along the wall here, they died in like 1770. There's no bodies there. So somewhere down there, there's a cemetery and it's unmarked, and I want to find it. I've been looking for it for like 20 years now, and I can't find it. And I'd like to put a Pomeroy Foundation marker saying original location of the Peter Fraley's burial yard. Okay, so these, because it's a churchyard, there are Revolutionary War soldiers buried in this section here. So our Pomeroy Foundation sign is talking about these Revolutionary War veterans. Now, Revolutionary War is very interesting. You live in Rhinebeck, right? Whose side were we on in Rhinebeck? Were we loyalists or were we... No. We were mixed.
You mean Union and Confederate?
No, this is Revolutionary War. So there were loyalist people who were loyal to King George III.
Really?
And then there were patriots who are, you know, the people that we like to talk about. Daughters of American Revolution people, okay? There were a lot of loyalists that lived in Rhinebeck. And around 20 years ago, the Canadian Broadcast Company sent a film crew down here, and they were filming in our cemetery because the Acker Traver Cookingham people, a lot of these people, Palatine Germans, Queen Anne was nice to them and gave them land and took care of them when they were refugees. They were loyal. And after the Revolutionary War, their property was confiscated and they left and they went to the north shore of Lake Ontario. So those people are like our relatives. Palatine Germans, a lot of them are up there. So that's kind of interesting. And this between here and New York City was controlled by who? The British. So this is like a no man's land. It would have been a really bad place to be during the American Revolution. West Point's down there, right? Benedict Arnold tried to betray our country at West Point. There's a lot of like nasty stuff, spying and counter-spying and all kinds of stuff going on in this particular area. It was not a good place to be during the Revolution. And they had militia units, meaning farmers, normal people, would, the British are coming, you get your musket, you go out and you skirmish with these people. Is that a good way to fight? Mm-hmm. Not really, because the British have professional military people and you're going against them with a bunch of farmers with obsolete weapons, and a lot of times the farmers run away, or if it's springtime, they leave the battle and go and plant their crops and they come back, you know, when they're done. You know, so it's hard to make an army out of farmers. So a lot of the people that are here, they probably were like militia type people who would come and go during the war. So very interesting, okay? Okay, let's go this way. I want to check that marker. That's a Legion marker. And these stones, you know, are ancient, and the weather has eaten away the faces of a lot of these inscriptions. And there was a man, Dr. Poucher, in the 1930s, that went around to all the cemeteries in Dutchess County and recorded the graves and the inscriptions on them, which is a good thing, because acid rain has dissolved a lot of the inscriptions. So if you're interested in doing genealogy, go to the Star Library, and Dr. Poucher is the guy's name, and he's got St. Paul's, Wurtemberg, St. Peter the Apostle Church, which is the old stone church. These graves are all listed, as many of them as were available. A lot of them are lost. Sometimes they get run over, they get knocked over, and they stack them in the corner somewhere, and we lose track of them. So, but Poucher's work is really important. Now these stones here are really old. See these? These are probably some of the stones that were moved from Peter Fraley's burial yard. And they're written in German. And they're like homemade. They're like homemade tombstones. They're really old. Here, 1771. See, before we were here, so they moved the stone. Okay. And then here we see, again, these are Revolutionary War flags here. That round marker up there is probably a Daughters of the American Revolution marker. And Steve ran into this. It's very difficult to try to confirm who's a DAR, who's a Revolutionary War veteran and not, because sometimes they serve in the militia and, you know, there aren't records, and so it's kind of a challenge. Okay. Okay, so let's go. These stones here are really old, and these are probably moved. Okay, now we're going to go to the new cemetery over here. This is interesting. I'm not sure when this marker was put up, probably in the maybe 1940s, and it's Daughters of the American Revolution put this here, DAR. And that's an important work. Okay, let's go over here.
Oh, the puppy.
I've seen that car in the Toyota. It's the one Bobby Dupain shot, but it's a Chevy Cruiser.
Okay, we have to go up the driveway here. Oh. I'm going to try to keep you on the paths.
But it looks pretty with the flowers. On the door, the red and purple. How old is this house?
1870.
We're going to stop here. All right, now, I'm the 31st minister to serve here at St. Paul's, Wurtemberg. This house was built in October of 1870 when Pastor George Neff was living here. That's during the American Civil War. He was a pastor, and they built this afterwards. Now, in 1916, Pastor William Boomhauer was here. He was a graduate of Hartwick Seminary, which is out by Oneonta. We have a lot of ministers that went back and forth to Hartwick to Rhinebeck, back and forth this way. And he was a very young man. He wasn't married. And he lived here with his mother and his brother, Millard Boomhauer. And his brother was like, 14, 15 years old or something when he came here. When World War I broke out, and the United States, Woodrow Wilson declared war April 2nd, 1917, he faked his birth certificate and he enlisted in the Navy. And Millard Boomhauer. And he died in 1919 because he got Spanish flu. And he lingered with lung problems. He died in Bayonne, New Jersey. About a year. It took him about a year to die from the Spanish flu, like long COVID, And his brother was the minister here, so he lived here, and he's buried right here, right, Millard Boomhauer. And the write-up at the time said he was a very patriotic young man, and he delighted in serving his country, and they say nothing but good things about him. Now, do we have a baptismal font in our church? Mm-hmm. The baptismal font was given in memory of Millard Boomhauer, who's buried right here, the brother of the pastor at the time. So it's quite a thing. So that's Millard Boomhauer. Got that? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to another one. This one here, we can kind of stand here. I'll walk back here so you don't have to walk on the grass. In our cemetery, we have Ackards, Travers, and Cookinghams buried here, right? A lot of them, okay? So this is Traver stuff. Here, this is Vera Traver, who's the wife of the Reverend Henry Wall. And who's he? He was ordained as a Lutheran minister in Canada, and he served St. John's Lutheran Church in Hudson, New York. And he was married to Verna Traver, who was part of the Traver clan here. And they had a son, Robert, who was a World War II veteran, and Robert's wife was Sylvia. She also served in World War II, which is kind of interesting. And they were active in the Boy Scouts, so there should be a Boy Scout flag there. Okay, so let's go on here. This is the grave of Egbert Traver. Again, Traver's actors Cookingham, like they're all intermarried. Let's go down here. All right, this one, we're not going to hike up there, but you kind of like, see that granite cross right there? Everybody see that one? Yeah. Yep. All right, that's the grave of Pastor Fred Dunn, who was here around 1963. He served our church, and he was a World War II veteran. He served in the Submarine Corps in World War II. Is that a big deal? Yeah. The American submarines, we literally sank the entire Japanese merchant marine fleet. So by the time January 1945 rolled around, the Japanese had like no fleet left. Because and it was mostly the submarines that did it. They were devastating. And I can't imagine being in a submarine. What a difficult way to fight a war. So that's Pastor Dunn. Everybody holding up all right?
Yeah. It's another one. You see the geraniums?
And this Potsdam is another common name here, and they were Palatine Germans. So it used to be the bed and breakfast down here on the left, all right? Yeah, well, no, it's down. The Bittersweet's this way. It's up here, right? And it's not a bed and breakfast anymore. Yeah. That's the Poltz family. So the Poltz family and the Wagers gave the land for the church, and these people are always coming around asking me how the church is doing because supposedly they get the land if the church goes under. It reverts back to the family. So it's like, we'll come to church and throw a few dollars in to keep us going here, you know. So you can have the cemetery, you mow it then, right?
Yeah, but isn't it the Coles who now own it or have always owned it?
Well, I think I'm just chasing Steve.
Oh, I believed it.
Oh, yeah, that was a really nice B&B.
Again, there's more Travers here. See, here we have Cookinghams on both sides and Travers all around. So, all right, now I want to, all right, let me do this one here. This one we might want to walk down to. Okay, now we look at this, what do we see? What does that star mean again?
They were veteran?
What kind of veteran? Yeah, GAR, Civil War veteran. This is the grave of James K. Brown. Who is he? From the 128th New York Volunteer Regiment, the 5 Brown brothers enlisted on the same day in September of 1862. And James K. Brown, he emerged through the Civil War unscathed. His brother William Brown, buried in the Rhinebeck Cemetery, was captured at the Battle of Cedar Creek. He's one of the group that went to Libby Prison and then Salisbury Prison. You don't want to do this. It's really awful. Another brother, Joe Brown, was killed at the Battle of 3rd Winchester. And the Battle of 3rd Winchester was in Shenandoah River Valley, particularly nasty fight. 1864 October, and in that Battle of Winchester, they said, we marched over his body 3 times. So in other words, they charged the Confederates, they came back, and they marched over his body 3 times. And so he's not, we don't know where his body is. He's buried probably in a grave with a lot of the soldiers that were killed at 3rd Winchester, but there's a cenotaph, that's a body without a marker, in the Rhinebeck Cemetery for Joe Brown. And Derek Brown became a very influential newspaper publisher in Poughkeepsie, and he was the Grand High Priest of Masons in the state of New York. He raised the money for the 128th monument that's in Poughkeepsie. You know, at Cannon Street? Yeah. Okay, that's this regiment. And he also raised money to build a monument at the Battle of Cedar Creek. Cedar Creek. And so it's one of the few monuments, the 128th, that's where they lost like 85 men captured as the battle broke. They were cooking breakfast and it was foggy and the Confederates surrounded them and they were like captured. They couldn't do anything. So then they end up being sent to Richmond and the Libby prison and so on. And some of them escaped. James K. Brown escaped. And he was a farmer. And he was active in the church here, our church, very active in our church, and he was, he came back and minded his own business and was a good citizen. That's kind of neat, right? Okay, now.
How about right behind you, dear?
Huh?
This right
one?
behind you?
Yeah, I don't know who this one is because the grave is kind of eaten away.
Oh, okay.
Albert Snyder. Yeah, it doesn't say, but evidently he's a GAR person.
Okay.
I have to check and see if he was in the 120th also. Okay, now let me see. Back here, I was using my bearings here. I guess down this way. What is that? I'm looking for. I can't stand this one. I can't find the grave. Oh, here it is, down here. Okay, keep coming this way. All right. This grave is probably one of the most important graves we have in our cemetery.
Yeah.
This is Sergeant George Monsees of the U.S. Army. And he was killed in action in France on June the 20th, 1944. What happened on June 6, 1944? D-Day, okay? So his division landed at Utah Beach, maybe 2 weeks after D-Day. And his division went around Utah Beach and up to attack the port of Cherbourg, the Cherbourg Peninsula. And he was killed fighting to liberate Cherbourg because they needed a port, So he was killed in post D-Day fighting. Now, is he buried here?
No.
This is a cenotaph. Again, it's a marker without a body. Where is he buried? He's buried at the Normandy Cemetery. Saving Private Ryan, he's in there. And about 15 years ago, Matt Moran took some dirt from Wurtemberg Cemetery and put it on his grave at the Normandy Cemetery in France.
Awesome.
So this is our connection, to, and again, who was he? He had a sister that lived in Pine Plains, and he was relatively old. He was 40 years old at the time he was killed. But he was a sergeant killed in action in France. Okay, excellent. Okay, let's go. I guess we can kind of sort of go down here. I'm trying to give you the short tour here.
It's okay.
Okay, we're gonna stop here for a minute. This is the grave of Ira Wager, and who is he? They called him Spike Wager, and he worked at the Rhinebeck. He worked at Williams Lumber for 50 years, and he's one of these guys that he knew everything. You could go in and go, "Do you have this bracket or whatever?" He knew. So he was like an expert in hardware, and so he's buried here. And he served in World War II. He was a technician, 5th class, right? So there we go. So we have a lot of World War II. Here's one. This is John Dahlem, and he was in the 8th Air Corps, the 8th Air Force. What did the 8th Air Force do? Well, basically, they flew the B-17s over France and Germany, and they destroyed the economy of Nazi Germany. So the 8th Air Force. So by the time the ground troops got there, most of the major devastation was done by the 8th Air Force. And these guys watched the movie. They have a movie out, you know, about the 8th Air Force. Early on in the war, basically you're a dead person. They didn't have any escort fighters with them, and they would fly B-17s without escorts, and they were like devastated by the Messerschmitts. Then the P-51 Mustangs came along, and they were fighter escorts, like hot rods with wings on it, and that's when the 8th Air Force really became a deadly weapon. So one of the reasons we won World War II is because of the 8th Air Force. That's kind of interesting. And let me see, let's go up here. We have a lot of flags here for World War II veterans. And again, why is that? During World War II, 14 million people, Americans, served in World War II, which is astonishing.
You want to show Judy's brother? Keep going. Dear. Right there.
Oh, yeah. All right. Hey, you want to come around here and get a better shot of this? All right, this is the grave of Warren Segrist, and Warren was fantastic. He was in the Seabees in World War II. What's a Seabee? Well, the Seabees are people where they would drop you off on some island in the Pacific, and it was your job to build a landing strip while the Japanese were shooting at you. So they're running bulldozers, building it. They're like construction guys. So Warren Segrist, pretty tough old dude. He lived in Rhinebeck, and he was a really solid conservative dude, and he loved going to like the village meetings and torturing the politicians. That was his thing in life. He loved it. He was the greatest thing ever, right? So this is Warren Segrist. This is Judith McMichael's half-brother. So Warren, a great guy. I smile at it every time I think about him. He was a tough old dude, you know. And a CB, you'd have to be crazy.
Right?
And okay, Charles Von der Leeth. Again, I don't know his backstory at all.
But he is the father of Gretchen and
Yes.
Georgette.
And he was okay. I do know.
And the
that.
husband of
He was an expert.
Ginny.
He was an expert welder. So people would come from all around states to have. So he, you know, the front steps on with that railing there. He did that. And every year at the turkey supper, he would come and check and make sure that the lead was holding and that it was holding okay. You know, so he pride in workmanship.
Also, the curtain rods downstairs.
Yes.
And the candle holders.
The candle holders.
Oh,
he
yeah.
made those. Yeah, so the guy was a real artist, you know. And then this, of course, is the grave of Herb McMichael. This is Judy's husband, and he was
Judy's son.
No, Herb.
Herb. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, and Herb. You know, when in the front we have the 3 chairs, and I sit in one of those. All right, that used to be red, bright red, and that was Santa's chair, because Herb was in charge of the IBM Country Club. So they would bring in like the Supremes. And all these people, you know, Wayne Newton and you know, Tony Orlando, all these people. So
Tony Orlando.
so the red chair was Santa's chair, and then we had it recovered after Herb died, and now it looks more like a regular church chair. But Herb was a great guy. He was an orphan raised in a Masonic orphanage in Ohio, and the Masons, you know, they give you a high school education and they pay for your college. So Herb, you know, he had quite an interesting life.
And this is Judy's mother and
Yes.
father.
Yeah, private in the General Hospital in World War I. So is that sort of an interesting job? I mean, talk about, it's one thing being in combat, but another thing having to clean up the mess and take care of the people that are suffering. You know, we tend to think about those that are killed in action. Well, the wounded veterans, I mean, you know, just think about that. You know, they lose legs, arms, you know, PTSD, all that stuff to go along with it, right? Okay, so let's go up here now. Again, we have a lot of World War II graves here.
careful.
It's so cute.
We've already did one of these walks before.
All right, we're almost done here, so hang in there.
That's all right. After I get done, I'll have some fuel.
All right, now, this is William Bradley. Who's he? He was in the Spanish-American War. So the Veterans of Foreign Wars were started by Spanish-American war veterans, and because they thought that the GAR guys didn't represent their interests, so they started the VFW. That's Spanish-American War, and it's a splendid little war. Lasted about 6 months. Teddy Roosevelt stormed San Juan Hill, all that sort of thing. So he was a member of the New York Volunteers. So that's our only Spanish-American War one that I know of. Okay, let's go up here now.
What happened to Patrick?
Oh, maybe he had to go.
Travers, Ackerts, and Cookinghams all over the place. And this is a grave of Daniel Free, and that should be a flag there because he's a GAR person. We have to get a flag down here for him. Uh-oh, this is not good. We have a GR site here, and the stone is toppled over. Again, this is why we have the Rhinebeck Cemetery Association, so that we can keep up on these graves. You know, so that has to be reset and re-glued. That's not an uncommon thing.
No, it's not.
The same gentleman who does our snow plowing. He's a landscaper, snow plower. He does everything.
This is a huge shop.
Yes,
Yeah, he must have just did it because he's.
he did it 2 days ago.
Yeah, I figured.
All right, this is the grave of Benson Frost Sr. and Benson Frost Jr. And they were both attorneys in Rhinebeck. Benson Frost Sr. was friends with Franklin Roosevelt, and that's unusual because Dutchess County, in all the 4 times Roosevelt ran, he only got 25% of the vote in Dutchess County. He was well hated by the Republicans in Dutchess County, so he never took his own county. But Benson Frost was friends with FDR Sr., and in 1970 they were holding a testimonial dinner for him with all the wonderful things he did for Rhinebeck, and he was up giving a speech and he dropped dead in front of the whole town. So kind of an awful thing. And then Benson Frost Jr., of course, he was an attorney. He died in 2006.
There's another one that fell
He
over.
lived on a road for a while, Reservoir Road.
He's probably related to, you
Yeah,
know.
he is because he's an attorney too in Rhinebeck. He got in a bad accident, and then he
Yeah.
like he couldn't continue his attorneyship. His wife left him.
Is he a young guy or?
You know what?
When he got, he's got
Turkeys.
really fast,
Oh,
We're
and he was reckless.
on the,
No,
on the
they're probably
stones,
related, aren't they?
and they're so heavy
Yeah,
that they
but
actually
he didn't have
reach
any
them
children.
over.
Is the person you're talking about buried here?
all right. We're gonna stop here for very briefly. This is Austin Frost Jr. and he's the son of Alva Frost. Alva Frost right here died in 1954. He was a school teacher who wrote a very useful history of St. Paul's Wurtemberg, I think for the 100th anniversary. So he was a good local historian. His son is Austin Frost Jr., and he was a medic in World War II, and he was killed in either Belgium or Luxembourg, one of the two, and he's buried over there. So this is also a cenotaph. Again, is being a medic in World War II an easy thing?
Oh,
the Japanese used to shoot at the people with their Red Cross painted on their helmet,
Yeah.
and they don't carry weapons. And in Germany, you can't separate out the medics from the people that are combatants, so they would like shell everybody, and so that's probably what happened to him. Mortar fire or something. So it's a very hazardous duty. So he was a medic. And this is interesting here. What's going on here? This person, I'm not sure who's great, Henry, okay? So he died in
32.
you can't even, it wasn't numbered.
Oh,
Anyway,
I thought that
this grave is collapsed. So what does that mean? That sometimes people have a vault with a casket in it. Sometimes they bury just the casket. Now what happens after like 50, 100 years, the casket deteriorates and the graves collapse. So it's one of the things we have to bring dirt in to level it off all the time. So it just, it happens. We had a really bad one up here recently, where the hole was down like 3 feet. I mean, it really collapsed. And again, these are all like Travers who were very active in our church. The stained glass windows to the Travers tours of the church. Look at all these people.
Look at all these caterpillars this year.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
It's great. My husband can have to hear them. He's the lead.
Oh. This one here, I don't know what that is.
I'm losing it.
That's kind of it.
Okay. Thank you so much for doing this.
And this is interesting here. This is a marker back here. Yeah, here it is. This is the grave of Horatio Sharp, born in 1844. He served in the GAR. Okay, GAR. And then these are his relatives. And it looks like they were in like World War II. So this is not uncommon where you have generations of veterans that serve. And here, this grave here, which also needs a flag. This is a Daughters of the American Revolution marker.